Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And that includes my very special guest today, Roberto, who went from being a college graduate with no idea what he wanted to do to eventually working on $10 million annual ad spend advertising accounts and some of the biggest, most recognizable brand names that you've all heard of. So I'm really excited to share Roberto's story with you. Thanks for being here, Roberto.
Of course, excited to speak.
Awesome. So let's start out with what you're doing right now. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your current position?
So I'm working at IProspect, which is a digital media agency that specializes in paid search, SEO, and paid social, which is what I work in. I'm currently working on the Subway account. So yeah, I've been here for about 2 years, and I've been in digital media and paid social for 3 years.
Awesome. And also, you don't have to. I'm sorry, you're doing great. I just say you don't have to stare into the camera. You
Yeah.
can, it's just more like just be aware of it.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So I'll come back here. That's awesome. And tell us a little bit more about your agency. You were telling me this is one of the largest agencies in the world.
Yeah, so iProspect is part of a larger holding group called Dentsu Media. And Dentsu is actually based out of Japan, and they have multiple agencies within their portfolio. So yeah, it's one of the top 5 agencies or biggest agencies in the world.
That's awesome, man. And what kind of let's see, can you name some of your other clients that you worked on? You mentioned Subway, which everybody's heard of. So what else?
Yeah, so when I first started out my career, I was actually on the Nestle book of business. So I was on brands like DiGiorno, Hot Pockets, Stouffer's, Lean Cuisine, Nestle Toll House. I think I'm missing a couple of smaller ones. Butoni, I was on that one as well. So worked on that for about 6, 7 months. Then from there, I started working on Bose for a little bit, which was a great brand to work on. Big fan of their headphones. And then I was on other brands like ARP, Hotels.com, Allied Bank for a little bit. So pretty much every vertical I've worked in.
That's awesome, man. And so, and you're doing, and you say, when you say paid social, you mean you're doing Facebook and Instagram ads essentially, right?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, but I've also have a lot of experience with Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok. I've run a couple campaigns on that platform since it blew up last year. So also LinkedIn, I ran Pinterest, pretty much every social media platform at this point.
That's amazing. And as I said in the intro, tell us a little about the kind of budgets that you've been working with.
Yeah, so I pretty much every year of my career, it's been over $10 million. That's, aggregated for various brands, but yeah, dealing with a lot of money, which can be a little bit scary at sometimes, but, we always make sure everything's running efficiently.
That's a good point. People sometimes message me like, "Oh my God, I'm spending other people's money. Is there pressure? What if you screw up?" And that's part of one of the reasons why people are paid well. And so I wanted to kind of walk people back a little bit to before you were managing $10 million accounts, because that's where most people are right now. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing. Actually, I'm going to cut myself off here because we didn't mention your salary. I'm going to just, we'll mention the general, like we discussed, and then, okay, I'm going to have to cut this up a bit.
All good. I'm sure you're good with it.
Yeah. That's great. And I know you didn't want to give us a specific figure on your salary, but relative to what you were doing when you graduated college, how are you feeling, in terms of compensation?
I'm very comfortable. I mean, yeah, like when I was out of college, I was working like side jobs and projects, and I was getting by. But yeah, no, I mean, a couple years in this industry, and you're doing really well.
That's fantastic. So you're someone who's further along in your career, you're managing all this big budget. And as you mentioned, sometimes it's a little scary to manage budgets of that size. And I know my students message me sometimes even concerned just in the beginning, managing $100 budget, because you obviously, you want to do right by the advertisers. But if you learn how to do it properly and you have a supportive team around you, it's definitely possible. So let's walk people back to the beginning and tell people how you got your first job and your experience with the course.
Yeah, definitely. So I had just finished a summer job, and I was still like looking for a full-time job. I was 3 or 4 months out of college. So I came about your course. I think it was through a couple of YouTube videos I saw. And I was like a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger. I didn't know much, but eventually I just did it, and I finished the course in about 2 weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks. And you gave some great advice about just going out and like finding a client who needs help on their website. And there was somebody who just posted that they needed help with SEO as like a unpaid internship. So I messaged her and started working with her weekly. We would have meetings at this coffee spot in my town. And yeah, I was just, optimizing her webpage for different words. Her website was a kids shoe website. So basically trying to get parents to go onto the website, and she ran affiliate marketing. So if someone landed on the website, saw an ad, and then went on to like Zappos or something, they would get paid. So I helped her out for about a month. And then, at that time I was also interviewing, and my first job was at Group M. So when I went in for that interview, they had asked me what I was doing and like why I was interested in digital marketing. And I told them that I took your course and I was also freelancing, doing some SEO, and that pretty much sealed the deal when they realized I had taken initiative and gone out of my way to find this job that basically didn't really exist. And yeah, my eventual boss was so intrigued by that. So yeah, it was great advice.
So that's awesome, guys. You hear it again and again. Get some actual experience for free on a small account. And then let me just focus in on this, because Group M is another huge agency. And so tell people like about your first job and what you were doing there, and like how did you actually get hired having only worked on this random woman's SEO site? Like how did that all work out? Like what happened on day one? Like, or actually, I'm sorry, forget about day one. What about the interview? Like, didn't they ask you about your previous experience and like, haven't you managed all these big accounts and haven't you worked on big projects?
No, they just really wanted somebody who was knowledgeable, maybe didn't have too much working experience, but they showed interest in the field. So that's the biggest thing, right? Is like if you don't have a job right now, literally you take your course, you give great knowledge out, and then you go find some work that can be done. I mean, there's a bunch of websites. You can go on Craigslist. People are always looking for like people who are knowledgeable about Facebook ads or about SEO, even like Google Analytics and things of that nature. So yeah, the interview, like they were so intrigued that I was taking this upon myself to gain this knowledge, because this is not something, digital media is not something they teach you in college, right? I was an economics major, so didn't really take too many marketing courses, but I had a really good understanding of data, which is pretty big when you're in digital media. So yeah, from there it was easy for me to get it to impress interviewers. I told them about the experience with your course and my experience freelancing.
So that's very well said. And again, even people who major in marketing, like David was saying, I mean, they're still not teaching this in college. It's hilarious. They are still, digital marketing is still an elective, like Swedish massage. Like literally, it's considered this, oh, it's not serious marketing, and the college is so outdated. And the guys in the marketing departments, I won't go on too much of a rant, but like I literally looked at, I went to NYU back in the day, and I looked at their marketing program, and all the heads of the department are like 80 years old. And these guys are not current, right? So anyway, that aside. So, all right, but you did work in SEO. What was your first job doing? What was that like?
Yeah, I was just literally, I think she was on WordPress or Wix. I don't really remember which one it was, but it was literally like going in and, tracking through SEMrush, like what she was ranking for, what she wasn't ranking for, and just, updating some headers on her page to make sure that they had like kids shoe sizing, all the
Oh no, I'm
keywords.
sorry. I think you misunderstood. I what I meant was you had okay. I'll start
Sorry,
over.
yeah.
It's okay. So you had just this experience you generated from working on a woman's site in SEO, but what was the job you got hired for at Group M?
Yeah. So I was working on Nestle and basically managing all of their Facebook media spend across 8 to 10 brands. And I was the only associate there, but I learned so much. I had great bosses and great mentors there. They really like guided me through Facebook Ads Manager, and we are also doing Twitter and some Snapchat. So they really were great in being able to educate me while I was also providing value in terms of trafficking ads and making sure the budgets were all correct. Yeah, it was just a lot of Facebook, setting up like different measurement studies with different partners like Nielsen, Oracle. We did some really cool stuff there. But yeah, that was basically my first job on Nestle.
Okay, I just have to. First of all, this is great because most of the people I interview are doing PPC, paid search, or SEO. You're doing paid social, Facebook ads, which is huge. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. You walked in there with no experience in Facebook ads, right?
Nope. Other than what
Okay.
you had, other than the knowledge, I think you did have a Facebook section at that point. So I did have a little bit of knowledge, but I was just dedicated to learning. Like even before I had started the job, like there's a bunch of resources out there, in your course, I kept rewatching the videos on Facebook advertising, just so when I walked in, I wasn't like, I had knowledge of Facebook advertising, even though I had just been doing SEO with the women's website. But yeah.
So, I mean, this is great. So, but on day one or like the first month, like you say Nestle, this is a huge company. So what kind of budgets were you working with? I mean, you don't have to give us the exact number, but like, were you managing like these big budgets relatively quickly?
Yeah, no, we were managing them relatively quickly. And I was like 23, 24 at the time. And it was like, wow, this is it's a little bit intimidating at first, but managing, millions of dollars on Nestle, like it's a little bit intimidating, but I was able to learn really quickly. I think when I started out, I really was dedicated to it. I remember I would take the bus in because I wasn't living near the city at that point. So I was always taking notes on like reach and frequency and CPM and how they affected each other. So yeah, you kind of just need to have like that drive to learn when you get your first job, because you'll never stop learning. But you can also provide value at the same time as you're learning.
Wow. I know people have been handed, like when I got my first agency job, they handed me 100K a month. And I thought that was a lot, but never millions. Um, so, well, let me ask you. So you had no previous experience. They're training you on the job, but somebody must have been working with you very closely. So you weren't just, you make like a change that like, oh, sorry, we just spent $2 million today and it's, was wasted, right? How was the support?
It was great. Yeah, like I said before, I had great mentors and great managers. And yeah, you're never gonna like make a once you get into the agency life, or if you start working for a brand, there's always going to be someone checking your work and QAing and making sure that all of the budgets are correct. Because yeah, that was my biggest concern. Every time I would like check our pacing docs and make sure that everything was running smoothly. But we had a great system of checks and balances, so those things would never happen with like overspends and those crazy budgets. And you need to, when you're dealing with that much money, you need to have multiple rounds of checking.
Definitely. Yeah, guys. Yeah, you listen. You know, willingness to learn, confidence, and knowledge. I mean, that's it. You have to understand that you are a player when you take the course. You're in the game. Like you're gonna have coaches and mentors. You're getting paid to learn, which is amazing. And so how long did you stay at that first job, and how did you get into the second job?
So I was at Group M total for about a year, year and a half. And after a year of experience, like it's very easy to get another job and get a pay raise, which is always important. So I stayed for about a year and a half. Then I moved over to iProspect. Been here for about 2 years. And yeah, it was pretty easy. Look, it's an in-demand career, whether it's paid social, paid search, anything in digital, like especially living in a big metropolitan area. And nowadays it's remote work from anywhere. So you can get a job in LA if you live in Minnesota, or if you live in Texas, like you can get a job anywhere. But just me, I had the opportunity to jump around and leave my first agency to get that promotion and get that compensation. So yeah, it all worked out switching over.
Yeah. And again, I'm not going to say what you're making, but my whole pitch is 60K in a year, and you're doing better than that. We'll just say that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great, Roberto. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Is there any advice you'd like to give people, or anything you'd like to say before we end the interview to the people watching?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice would just be to follow what's in the course, build your knowledge, go get a freelance job, even if it's not paying anything. That's the experience that's going to help you break into the industry. And yeah, it's a industry in demand for sure. So yeah, definitely just go for it and be persistent.
That's it, guys. I mean, that's it. And be persistent. That's the huge part. It's like you gotta keep, it's in demand, but you got to put in the work. You got to make the applications. You're not going to get accepted by every job you apply to, but you will get interviews if you keep at it. And I'm proud of you, Roberto. I'm really happy for where you are. And I'm glad you reached out to me. That's the thing, guys. I actually, Roberto just reached out to me randomly, like 3 weeks ago, just out of nowhere. I haven't heard from him in 3 years. And that's why we're doing the interview, and just to tell me how he was doing and to thank me. So thank you for reaching out and for sharing your story with everybody.
Yeah, definitely. No, I want to spread the word, and for people out there who might not have a great career, or they don't have the career they want, like there's avenues to get to a better spot. So definitely take the course and build your knowledge, and eventually you'll get that great job.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here, and we'll stay in touch.
Sweet. Sounds good. Thanks, Seth.